and thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. I'm excited to see that you all have shown an interest in making an impression on future generations and inspiring the next innovators and engineers. I'm happy to speak with you all and tell you more about the EnCorps STEM Teachers Program and answer any questions that you may have. Today's EnCorps 101 webinar is special because we have an EnCorps Fellow that's joined us today, Richard, who I'll introduce in just a moment. So let's begin by telling you a bit about the EnCorps team. You'll find the EnCorps Regional Director for your area here, as well as our Coordinator and our Director of Fellow Engagement. Feel free to reach out to your Regional Director for any follow-up questions that you might have after this webinar. You'll also find their contact information on our website. So a little bit about me. I'm Bethany Orozco, the Program and Recruitment Director for the Greater Los Angeles area. I have spent my career thus far in education because I was once inspired to do my part to promote a love of math in students. My draw to education goes back to my time in college. As a student at the University of Minnesota, I volunteered as a tutor in the Minneapolis Public Schools, where I worked with young elementary students after school on math. I could not believe how far behind the students that I worked with were, and I decided that I wanted to do something about it and join Teach for America, a national corps of teachers. I taught high school math and science at a school in Hawthorne, California, and completed a secondary math credential at Loyola Marymount University. From there, I went on to do recruiting for teachers at a large network of schools in Southern California, where I realized there was a huge shortage of qualified math and science teachers, as you also heard in the video. So we began the school year with over 15 long-term subs in our math and science classrooms when I was recruiting for this organization. And so I joined the EnCorps team because I know that we must do something other organizations and people are not doing, and that's to tap into talent that's not traditionally tapped into for STEM education, and that is STEM industry professionals and all of you on the line with us today. So I'd like to introduce Richard Chung, and I'm going to unmute Richard so that he can tell us a little bit about his background and how he found out about EnCorps. So go ahead and take it away, Richard.
Hi, I hope all of you can hear me. I know we were having some sound difficulties earlier. Is everything okay?
Oh, you sound great, Richard. You actually sound much better.
Okay, wonderful. My name is Richard Chung, and about 2 years ago, I was working as an accountant. I've been an accountant for almost 20 years, working in the business area. And my family and I decided that it would be best for me to do a career change. And so I've always wanted to do teaching. And so I heard about EnCorps when I was doing some online search. And I was able to get an email from Bethany. So the same Bethany that you're hearing now was the first person I talked to from EnCorps. And she was really encouraging, and I shared with her my concerns about changing careers and going into teaching, and she was able to really explain to me how EnCorps could help me with the change. And so I signed up, I went through the whole process, and I was really glad to be one of the fellows. And so this last year in 2016, I was at Saito High School. That's the picture that you see right there. I'm with Bethany and I believe Angel Honda. And I helped with their geometry classes and their science classes and also their special education classes. And it was a wonderful experience. Saito High School is a charter school in downtown Los Angeles. And they specialized in helping students that dropped out of high school when they were younger and wanted to come back and get their diploma. And so it was a really rewarding experience. And after that experience, I'm right now at Cal State LA in the Los Angeles Urban Teacher Residency Program. And Monday through Thursday, I'm serving at Alhambra High School. And so within, 20 months, all these things have happened, and it's been a wonderful experience.
Great. Thank you so much, Richard. You'll be hearing much more from Richard. He's going to talk a lot more about his EnCorps experience and what you could potentially expect if you were to apply for the EnCorps Fellowship. So let's hear from all of you that are on the line quickly. I'm interested in knowing who is in the audience, and so if you could type into the question and comment box, which STEM profession do you identify with? Take about 30 seconds to let us know who you are and who's on the line. Okay, wonderful. I'm seeing lots of responses come in. Many engineers on the line, some scientists, computer science and electrical engineering. I also see a geologist and program manager. So it sounds like you all have varied interests and backgrounds in STEM. And thank you again for being on the line with us today. It's nice to sort of meet all of you. So I want to talk about why we are here on the webinar today and why EnCorps exists. And to do that, I'd like to tell you a quick personal story. So as a math intervention teacher at a middle school in Southern California, I was prepared to work with students who had fallen behind in math and needed some extra attention. However, after my first few days with a group of 6th to 8th graders, I was still shocked to find that my lowest performers were on a 2nd grade math level, while my highest performers were at about a 5th grade level. One day we passed around a ball playing a multiplication game, and my students could not even count by 6s. These students had somehow made it through kindergarten through 5th grade, or even more if they were 8th graders, but could barely multiply. Their teachers and the system had failed them, and they were embarrassed and frustrated. And so the answer to me and to EnCorps and our fellows is simple. The reason why we are here is students. We're here because EnCorps addresses the conditions that severely limit low-income, under-resourced, and minority student opportunities. And we believe that all students should have access to a great STEM education, STEM teacher, and STEM opportunities. And this, unfortunately, is not currently true. STEM education in the U.S. is lacking, especially for minority and low-income students. In the most recent results from the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, also known as Smarter Balanced Assessments, these happened most recently in spring 2016, only 37% of students in California met or exceeded the math standards. It's worse when we look at the data by ethnicity. The racial achievement gap is staggering. While 53% of white students met or exceeded the math standards in 2016, only 24% of Latino students and only 18% of Black students met or exceeded them. The California STEM Learning Network reported that there is a leaky STEM pipeline in California. Of almost 500,000 ninth graders enrolled in high school in California, only 70% go on to graduate high school. 53% are college ready, 21% major in STEM, and by the end of the pipeline, only 21,000 students earn a STEM bachelor's degree. Corporations are not able to fill their STEM positions, let alone find diverse candidates. And in order for California and the U.S. to be competitive in today's global market, STEM education needs to improve for all of our students. So if it isn't bad enough, there's also a crisis-level teacher shortage in California. The Learning Policy Institute released a report in September of this year that concluded that the U.S. is experiencing the worst shortage of teachers since 1990, with school districts nationwide needing to hire up to 300,000 new teachers annually through the 2017 to 18 school year. And if we zoom into California, between 2003 and 2012, enrollment in teacher preparation programs has declined 74%, and there were actually over 21,000 teaching vacancies at the beginning of the 2015-16 school year in California. And we know that California alone needs 33,000 new math and science teachers over the next 10 years. So it comes down to this. There's a teacher shortage in California, and it is worse for math, science, engineering, and technology subjects. And it is even worse for high-need, low-income schools, the schools that EnCorps serves. So this is where you come in. All of you on the line today have STEM expertise and want to get involved in public education in high-need schools. You can truly make a difference with EnCorps. Students need to learn from experts in the field who can answer the question of relevance, and they need role models who have real industry experience that can connect schoolwork with the real world and real careers. So I want to ask Richard to speak again, and I'm interested if you could possibly tell us, Richard, about your experience at Saito High School and Alhambra High School, and just tell us a little bit about what you see for the current state of STEM education and how you've sparked the interest of the students that you worked with.
Sure, that's a great question. The first thing I want to share is from Saito High School. As I said earlier, Saito High School is a charter school in downtown Los Angeles. And most of the students that are there are people who, for one reason or another, had left or dropped out of high school when they were younger, and now are given a second chance to come back and finish get their high school diploma. And so these are people between the ages of 17 and 21 for the most part. And the students that I met had a high desire to do better and to learn about math and science because they had been in the real world and they realized they were lacking. And so they came back to the school, and the teachers there they are wonderful people. They try really hard and they're really succeeding in really helping the students. The one challenge, though, has been, as one of Bethany's slides earlier says, their level right now is at a very low level when they come into the school for whatever reason. And so the teachers are teaching students that are math and science-wise are in, let's say, middle school. And they have such a long amount of space that they need to catch up on. And one thing I realize is, for those of you who are working in the real world in science and math, they are really interested in those things. For example, I did accounting, and many times they ask me, how do I go into business? How do I get a job with finance? And that really sparks the interest of the students to really be involved and to really do better in classes. There's one student named Toby. He was 18 years old, and he had to drop out of high school. And recently he came back, and he shared with me how, because of the teachers at Saito High School, they really encouraged him not to give up, but instead to stay and get his high school diploma. And I'm glad that after he got his diploma, he was able to get a job in downtown LA, whereas before he wasn't even considered for the job. And so that's one student at Saito High School. Right now I'm at Alhambra High School, which is in San Gabriel Valley. And there I also see the tremendous need of students. I teach one math class where the majority of the students had not done well in math when they were younger. And so it's quite a challenge to always go into the classroom with real life experience and really try to spark their interest and attention. And I'm glad that the programs that I've been involved with have helped in terms of preparing me to really engage these students. For example, there's one student named Daniel, and Daniel is a typical teenager. He's on the iPad every day. He's listening to his iPad and iPhone, all these other stuff. And so his attention span is a lot lower than when I was in high school. And so I think the teachers today need to really bring their real life experience and also be able to connect the students to really get involved with math and science. And so it's a challenge, and yet it's very rewarding to see these students improve. So I'm not sure if I went too long or too short, but
Thank you, Richard.
Sure.
No, that's wonderful. It's so good to hear those personal stories about the students that you've been working with. So thanks for sharing about both of your experiences at Saito and at Alhambra. So I want to tell the audience a little bit more about the EnCorps Solution and kind of where EnCorps comes from and about our program. So EnCorps Solution is really looking to STEM industry leaders. EnCorps was founded in 2007 as a public benefit corporation, and we're supported by the very corporations that are affected by the STEM leaky pipeline that I showed. Companies like Boeing, Qualcomm, American Honda, and philanthropic organizations like the WM Keck Foundation. So the EnCorps Fellowship is an innovative and long-term solution to these enduring STEM achievement gaps that disproportionately limit low-income and minority student opportunities. And we believe that STEM industry leaders bring technical skills, leadership, and real-world experience to public schools and are able to deliver a really authentic and rigorous and also relevant STEM education to the students who need it most. So we're tapping into this resource that no one else is tapping into to engage our highest need students in science, math, engineering, and technology. There are several reasons why EnCorps STEM Fellows have been successful as educators and why STEM industry professionals are successful. And that's because you know your content. As a professional chemist or engineer, you've lived and breathed that craft every day. And unfortunately, many teachers will go into teaching as a subject without even an undergraduate degree in it. We also know that as a STEM professional, you are passionate about your area of expertise and you know why it's relevant, so you can relate the real world experience for students. As Richard mentioned, you have that background in engineering. Students are going to ask how they will be able to use the algebra they're learning, and you'll be able to describe how you used it in your position. Either, if you are working with us as a tutor in your position currently, or, if you transition to teaching in your former STEM industry. You can also serve as a role model for the students you will work with. So some students from under-resourced areas may have never met an engineer or someone with an advanced degree, and they might feel that it's really out of reach for them or be unaware of the pathway toward this type of career, which is very unfortunate. So we want to expose them to these opportunities and role models. And a lot of times STEM professionals have access to opportunities that students do not have. They can say to a student, in my old job, I did X, and in fact, we can go visit the lab or the manufacturing floor or my old office. And this gives students insight into a world they might have never seen. So we really believe that bringing STEM professionals into the classroom will begin to solve these problems. So could the EnCorps Fellowship be the right program for you to explore public education? Let's get into some of the details of our fellowship. When you become an EnCorps Fellow, you will explore your role in public education. We've laid out a clear pathway that allows you to get in front of students immediately so that you can try your hand at tutoring or guest teaching and explore if teaching is the right career pathway for you. From there, fellows choose one of 3 tracks. 2 are credentialing tracks for becoming a teacher, and the other is our STEM expert tutoring track for those fellows interested in staying involved but at a lower commitment level. EnCorps supports 2 routes for credentialing, the single subject credential, which you will see in red there, and the CTE credential, or career and technical education. Single subject in red is your traditional math and science subjects, chemistry, physics, biology, and math. And the CTE credential is for subjects like engineering, IT, transportation, manufacturing, and reflect industry sectors. We're able to really individualize our support for our fellows so that we can determine the best pathway and timeline for you. And if you join EnCorps in January, you could potentially be teaching as early as fall 2017, or you could take a slower route and begin teaching in fall 2018 or even 2019. Your pace will depend on you and the type of teaching credential you are interested in earning. So I'm going to give you 3 examples of individualized pathways through the EnCorps Fellowship. So, for example, Steve, he's an Orange County Fellow. He interviewed last fall, completed pre-service guest teaching from January through May, then earned a CTE credential in engineering online this past summer. He had multiple job offers as a CTE high school engineering teacher this fall and began teaching in mid-August. Another example is La Tierra, who's a Los Angeles Fellow. She interviewed in the spring, tutored biology in the fall semester, applied to a single subject credentialing program through EnCorps in the winter, and guest taught biology in the spring semester, and then began her credentialing program in the summer. She was hired in the fall following her year with EnCorps as a full-time paid intern teacher and is now in her second year teaching with Los Angeles Unified School District. And lastly, Charlotte, who's a Los Angeles Fellow, interviewed last spring and is a STEM expert tutor this fall, and she's continuing with us to tutor this winter and spring. So those are just 3 examples, and Richard can tell you a little bit more about his pathway through the EnCorps Fellowship in just a moment. Before that, I'm going to get into what it is that EnCorps offers as part of our fellowship. So the EnCorps Fellowship offers a plethora of support, professional development, and access to education in California. First of all, we want our fellows to explore their role in public education by getting in front of students right away. You will volunteer in what we call pre-service, tutoring, or guest teaching. As a tutor, you will work with students one-on-one or in small groups on math, science, engineering, or technology. This can happen before school, at lunch, after school, and sometimes on the weekend. As a guest teacher, you will observe, shadow, and eventually teach your own lessons with an experienced host teacher as your mentor. Our host teachers are carefully selected and have 3 or more years of teaching experience under their belt. These pre-service placements can also become potential future employment opportunities because our fellows end up networking with their host school, and administrators are often very impressed with their EnCorps Fellow. Along with your experience tutoring or guest teaching in schools, you will work with an experienced mentor teacher and be supported all along the way by your EnCorps program director. As a former math and science teacher myself, I will share my experiences with you not only as a teacher, but with credentialing and navigating the world of education. EnCorps has been able to offer scholarship opportunities for fellows who pursue teaching credentials, as well as professional development scholarships for programs such as Project Lead the Way and Linked Learning. And in addition, we have close relationships with partner schools and districts in all of our regions, all of whom are chomping at the bit to hire EnCorps Fellows. Our partners have seen EnCorps Fellows in action as guest teachers and full-time teachers in their schools, and they recognize the unique leadership and skills that our fellows bring to a school site and classroom. EnCorps also provides credentialing resources and research for those fellows who decide to pursue teaching as a second career. We have personal relationships with credentialing institutions and can provide discounts to select programs, and you'll see on the right side the credential areas that are supported by EnCorps. We also offer professional development through our 3 in-person events each year, which include our Summer Residential Institute, our Fall and Spring Institutes, professional learning communities that meet throughout the year, online webinars, and print resources such as our tutoring and guest teaching handbooks. Our in-person sessions are practical, interactive work sessions to build teaching skills and reinforce topics like classroom management, adolescent psychology, behavior and instructional strategies, as well as project-based learning, Common Core, and next-generation science standards. And on top of all of this, you will have a cohort of peers to share the experience. EnCorps Fellows share experiences as a STEM professional and career-changing teacher with others who are also transitioning to teaching. We host several social gatherings throughout the year and have online communication tools to keep in touch with the other fellows in our program. So Richard, I'm going to unmute you again, and I'm wondering if you could tell us about your experience and pathway through the EnCorps program.
Great. Hello?
Yep,
okay.
we can hear you.
So Yeah, so in 2015, I heard about EnCorps and I applied and was accepted to be a fellow. And the fears that I had was, first of all, I was making a career change and I did not know what that was going to be like. And I also hadn't been in a local high school for a while, so I wasn't sure what the students would be like as well. And what I really appreciated about EnCorps was that it really helped me to really get my feet wet and to learn more about this desire to become a full-time teacher. And so I attended the Summer Residential Institute. I met a bunch of people who were going through the same ideas that I had about, hope maybe becoming a teacher, maybe not becoming a teacher, and what that would be like. And so the guidance and support I got there was really helpful. And the best part was being able to decide and have Bethany help me find a place for me to do my guest teaching. And when I went to Saito High School, the staff there, my mentor teacher there, were really, really helpful and in guiding me and giving me the experience and, for me to really test and see if teaching was what I wanted to do. Basically, at least once a week, maybe sometimes twice a week, I would go to Saito High School. I would observe my mentor teacher, and then I would do some guest teaching as well. And by the time that was over, I really felt the desire to be a full-time teacher. And so with that in place, I looked at many different residency teaching programs, and EnCorps, had a nice chart with all these phone numbers and email, and they were able to help me to kind of decide and narrow down my options. And so for myself, I wanted to stay in Los Angeles, and so I looked at different schools, and I ended up wanting to go to Cal State LA, where they have a program called LAUTR, which is the LA Urban Teacher Residency Program. And to make a long story short, LAUTR basically pays for all my tuition and also gives me a stipend as I'm getting my credential. And so I'm in the middle of that process right now where I work Monday through Thursday at the high school, Alhambra High School. And in the evenings, a few days of the week, I'm at Cal State LA getting my credential. And so the good news is if you want to go into teaching, you can quickly, within 1 or 2 years, jump right in, get a credential, and be able to teach. And the best thing about EnCorps is that during the whole process, through the workshops and through the residencies and the observations and the feedback, it's really a great way to kind of go in and learn if this is what's good for you and what you're good at. And along the way, they really provide all the support that is required to make these changes. So I'm really thankful for EnCorps, and I'm really glad the program I'm in at Cal State LA.
Great. Thanks, Richard. I also want to follow up from Richard's comments. Richard chose a residency program, which is one way to subject credential. And there are 2 other types or programs for earning a single subject credential. So the residency is where you spend a year under a mentor teacher, and as Richard mentioned, he receives a stipend. An intern program is actually where you would begin teaching and earn your credential at the same time. So you're earning a full salary and benefits as you also earn your credential. And the third type of program is a more traditional program where you would take courses first and then student teach after that, and then be hired as a full-time teacher. And so sometimes, thinking through those 3 different types of programs might fit different types of lifestyles. I see a question from Winona. How closely aligned must our professional experience tie into what we teach? For example, I work in tech, but I might rather teach science like biology or chemistry. So Winona, I'm going to go ahead and answer your question right now. So if you would like to teach a traditional single subject, that would be math, chemistry, biology, or physics. Your industry experience or your professional experience does not need to necessarily align with those subjects. because you will actually take what's called the CSET exam, which is a subject-specific examination to show your subject matter competency. And EnCorps actually helps you. We provide study materials for that. And so that's how you show your subject matter competency. And then when you earn your credential, you're actually learning how to teach those subjects, not the content. So for a single subject, you don't necessarily need to have the professional experience or even a bachelor's or master's degree in the subject that you wish to teach. If you are interested in the CTE subjects, which you'll see on the right-hand side that follow industry sectors, you do need to have industry experience in those sectors in order to teach with a CTE credential. And you need to have 3 or more years of experience in that industry sector. So it depends on which type of credential you would like. And Winona, I'm going to quickly unmute you to just double check that I've answered your question and if you have any follow-up questions. Are you there, Winona?
Yes, thank you. That answers my question very thoroughly.
Awesome. Thank you, Winona. Let us know if you have others. All right, so we just have a couple of last slides left. And so I want to talk a little bit about where you would be doing this volunteer work as a tutor or guest teacher and where you might potentially be teaching full-time. So EnCorps partners with schools and districts in the 6 regions that we serve. Our partners are carefully vetted through a selection and rating process so that our fellows can expect a welcoming and supportive environment. It's impossible to provide all the schools we work with on one slide, but here are a few examples. And you can trust that we have partners spread geographically as well as different grade levels to work with from 6th to 12th grade and various subjects. So your regional director for your area can give you a more complete list if you're invited to our interview day. I also want to mention that these are the schools that we partner with for the tutoring and guest teaching. Once you are credentialed through the EnCorps program, it's actually a California state credential. So you would be eligible to teach in any public school in California. And you don't have to necessarily stick to the EnCorps partners, although these schools are definitely very interested in hiring EnCorps fellows. If accepted into our program, our expectation is that you first attend an orientation in January or June. Since we are in the middle of January, at this point, you would be attending the orientation in June, and then serve as a pre-service tutor or guest teacher for at least 1 semester. I like to point out that your pre-service can be completed while working full-time by volunteering before or after school or on the weekends. And we want you to attend our 3 in-person professional development events each year and take advantage of our online webinars and other opportunities. We understand that not everyone that begins our program will decide to become a full-time teacher, and this is what EnCorps is for: public service and discovery of your role in public education. If you decide to become a STEM expert tutor, we wish for you to volunteer for an additional year. And if you decide to transition to teaching, we want you to teach for at least 3 years in a high-need school. So you may be wondering, when can you begin? If accepted as an EnCorps Fellow, you can start participating in the EnCorps community events and professional development opportunities right away. And our Summer Residential Institute this year is towards the end of June, and it's going to be held in the San Diego area. EnCorps actually covers your room and board as well as a small travel stipend. So in order to qualify to join EnCorps, you must live in an area that we serve. We have 6 regions in California, possess at least 3 years of full-time STEM industry experience, and we do count research experience as well. And you must be eligible to work in the United States and hold an undergraduate degree with a GPA of 2.5 or higher. These are what we call our baseline eligibility requirements, and if you meet these, you will fill out an online application with background information and respond to 2 short answer questions. Previous coursework or experience in education is not expected or necessary. So you may have questions, additional questions about lots of things as it pertains to the EnCorps program, and providing information, advising, and guidance to our accepted fellows is part of our fellowship. I'm happy to answer any additional questions you have now, but know that if you do become an EnCorps fellow, we will talk further with you about many things, some of which are special accommodations or considerations for your volunteer placement, speeding up or slowing down your transition to teaching, accessing scholarship or grant money for credentialing, selecting a credential program, figuring out which type of credential to pursue, and connecting you with hiring schools, and much, much more. So lastly, I would like to open it up to Richard to discuss any challenges he has faced as he is making the transition to teaching, and also the rewards of this work. And Richard and I will both be on the line to answer questions as well. So Richard, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you one more time.
Thank you, Bethany. First of all, I really appreciate the slides, and everything that I see reminds me of all the things that really EnCorps did to support me and encourage me. And I want to really highlight the great need that's out there for good teachers. And if you're worried about getting a job, for example, if any of you, if you're wondering if you can ever find a job as a teacher, from my experience, there's a tremendous need, and people are always asking, do you want to come to my school and teach here? So if you're thinking about, you're worried about getting a job, if you know your material, you will be a great teacher, and they will find you a job. In terms of challenges, I think the main challenge that I face is with a career change. I have my family, I have 2 kids, and so not only am I in the school teaching Monday through Thursday, but I'm also taking classes at Cal State LA. And so in terms of my schedule, the weeks do get pretty busy. In the summers, there's classes in the summer in my residency program as well. But it's only 1 year, and so I know it's a lot of work this year, but there's a big reward at the end of that. So one challenge is the first year is a very time-consuming process of working in the school, getting experience, and also taking classes to get your credential. Another challenge is, the students in the schools, many of them are not motivated to do well or study. Some of them have, very difficult situations at home, and so they're not able to do their homework, for example. And so you do really have to have the love of wanting to teach and help these students. And the reward is also there as well. When you see them, they start the class, they don't know what they're doing, but by the time, after a few weeks of instruction, they really are understanding what you're teaching. That's always a big reward. And so I think these challenges are very, they're not insurmountable challenges. But if you're doing a career change, it is going to take some time and effort, but the reward is definitely there. And EnCorps is definitely there to support and encourage us during this process.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard.
Sure.
So, like I said, both of us will stay on the line for a few minutes more to answer your questions. I actually do see a few questions that have come up. I'm going to get to those in just a moment. I want to explain the next step for anyone that has not yet applied online. So the next step for you would be to complete our online application. It includes background information, educational and work history, and 2 short answer responses. And we will get back to you within 5 business days. Then if you seem like a good fit for the EnCorps Fellowship, we would invite you to interview with us. We host interview days in all of our regions monthly. So we encourage you to apply and interview early. Our final, I'm sorry that the slide here actually has our mid-year deadline. Our final application deadline is May 15th, 2017. So that's the deadline to to think about right now, May 15th. If you have additional questions about our organization and the EnCorps Fellowship, you can check out our website, Frequently Asked Questions, and be in touch with your regional program director. And again, you will receive a copy of the recording of this webinar by email later today. So I want to go back to my personal story that I told at the beginning, my group of 6th to 8th grade students. One student in particular will always stay with me. Jasmine was a 6th grader who came into my class having lost all her confidence and interest in math. She was a sweet and quiet girl, but struggled through the most basic assignments and lessons. And I knew to get through to her, I would need to build her confidence back up. So slowly through the weeks, I gave her problems that I knew she could handle. We played games in class and created a classroom culture that was comfortable, warm, and collaborative. And she began to gain confidence in her small successes. And then I would give her something a little bit more difficult. So toward the end of the semester, I received an email one morning from her dad. When he went into the kitchen that morning to prepare breakfast, Jasmine was already up completing her math homework, and she told him that she wanted to be ready for Ms. Gildner's math class. I could not have been more proud. So imagine the influence that you could have on just one student's life, and consider taking the next step to get involved in our fellowship for the camaraderie, the exploration into education, and to make a difference with the students that you will work with. So I'll go ahead and now respond to the questions that I see coming up. Just let me get back to this screen. So one question, what is the next step? Oh, okay. So I think I described the next step after the webinar, but Imad is also asking if I can illustrate the steps for year one. So the steps will vary based on how quickly you want to get into teaching, but I'll give you a quick example. So if you were to apply right now, you'll hear back from us within a matter of about 5 days. Your next step would be to interview with EnCorps at one of our monthly interview days. And then from there, you would receive an offer to join the EnCorps Fellowship if we thought that it was the right fit. For the winter and spring, right now, you would engage in the EnCorps professional development and our community, but you would attend our orientation session in June. So you would actually go to Summer Residential Institute at the end of June in San Diego. It's over the course of a 3-day weekend. And there you would engage in professional development, meet your cohort in person, and really get a sense of what it's like to be an EnCorps Fellow. You would also get to then engage in choosing your pre-service tutoring or guest teaching school site. So we would give you a list of all of the schools that we work with, and you would tell us your top 3 preferences. In the summer, we match you with a school site, and then in the fall, you begin your pre-service tutoring or guest teaching, and that's for 2 to 5 hours per week for at least that one semester. During that time, you would also be engaging in some of the sort of pre-work to become credentialed. So if you chose to do a single subject credential, you would be taking your CSET and CBEST exams, doing some fingerprinting, ordering transcripts, and then applying to our university partners for the single subject credentialing programs. And in the spring, you would guest teach and then potentially begin your credential program. For a CTE credential, it's a little bit more flexible in terms of timeline. You could actually earn your CTE credential really at any time throughout the year, and so you may actually be teaching full-time by fall of 2017. So again, it varies the timeline based on what you really want to do, how quickly you want to get into teaching. So that's just one example. And Maud, I'm going to unmute you in case you have any follow-up questions. Hi there.
Thank you. Hi. No, you've answered everything.
Perfect. Okay. Let me know if anything else comes up. All right. I see a question from Clay. May I ask what % of EnCorps Fellows on the teacher pathway transition directly from the program to full-time teaching positions? Great question, Clay. I think what you're asking is how many of our EnCorps Fellows are getting hired. And the answer to that is actually over the course of our existence since 2007. All of our EnCorps Fellows who have earned a teaching credential have gotten hired right away. So I actually have schools that are typically calling me in the spring and asking for EnCorps Fellow resumes for their teaching positions. And a lot of the time I have to tell them we don't have anyone because everyone has been hired. So Clay, I think that was what you were asking, but let me know. Just unmuted you.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, that was exactly what I'm asking, and that's really impressive. So
yeah,
thank you.
No problem. Yes, so EnCorps Fellows are definitely in need, I'll say, and our partner schools want to hire them. And yes, so over the course of our history, everyone has gotten hired. All right, so I see maybe two more questions. Is it correct that EnCorps Fellows do not collectively go to school with each other on a daily basis? Winona, that is correct. So because our EnCorps Fellows are based very geographically spread out, you would not actually go to school with the other EnCorps Fellows. You will choose the university or county office of education that is best for you, closest to your home or online, whatever it is that you're looking for in order to earn your credential. However, you will see EnCorps Fellows on an ongoing basis through our in-person professional development events, our PLCs, our social events. You'll also engage with them online. We have several platforms for which you can speak to each other that way. A lot of times new EnCorps Fellows go to visit alumni EnCorps Fellows in their classrooms to get a sense of what it's like to teach engineering or math or chemistry. And then also, a lot of times we place more than one EnCorps Fellow at a partner school site for their tutoring or guest teaching. So for example, one of our sites in Los Angeles actually has 5 EnCorps Fellows who are engaging in their pre-service right now, and so they get to see each other, they get to sort of share the experience. And then the second question that Winona had is most fellow to EnCorps staff support handled online or individually at EnCorps offices? It's both, I would say. A lot of it is via email, many phone calls, and we like to meet in person whenever possible. We'll meet you for coffee, or we will go straight to your school site. You can expect to see your program director several times at your school site during the semester to come and observe you and give feedback. So we engage with the fellows in all of those ways. Winona, do you have any other follow-up questions?
No, that helps bring the fellowship into focus for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Last question that I see is, where can the curriculum for CTE versus specific subject teachers be reviewed? Great question. That's from Nita. And Nita, I can send you a link to the curriculum for CTE. And the curriculum for the math and science subjects, the more traditional, is the Common Core and the Next Generation Science Standards. So if you'd like, I can send links to all of those to you after the webinar is over. So I'm going to open it up for any additional questions. It looks like so far I've answered all of them. And Richard, I'm unmuting you just one more time. I want to say thank you so much for your time. It was really wonderful for everyone on the line to hear from an EnCorps Fellow. So thanks, Richard.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Bethany.
Wonderful. Well, I will stay on for about 1 more minute if anyone wants to type in additional questions. And again, thank you for joining us. Okay, I see one more question that came up. What distinguishes whether a fellow takes the teaching credential versus gets credential while working full-time as a teacher? Question from Clay. So I think what you're mentioning here is two different types or two different programs or ways to earn your single subject teaching credential. With the stipend is what's called a residency program, and working full-time with salary and benefits while earning your credential is what's called an intern credential program. What distinguishes it is simply what you decide is best for yourself. Not all universities offer residency programs, although most do offer intern programs. So, for example, in the LA area, I know about 3 or 4 residency programs at various universities that offer the stipend and the 1 year in the classroom. Whereas I think that most of the universities in Los Angeles offer an intern program. Also, what distinguishes the different types is that with a residency program, you'll spend that 1 year in a classroom under a mentor teacher and earn a stipend. Then the following year, you would basically be hired as a full-time teacher at your own school site. So you are placed in that school site that you do your residency in. You don't have to worry about getting hired. Versus in an intern program, you actually get hired by the school site, and then you're paid your salary and benefits by the school site while you're earning your credentials from a university. So with the intern program, EnCorps will, of course, support you in getting hired as an intern, and your university would also support you in that way. Clay, just going to unmute you one more time. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so it looks like I have responded to everyone's questions. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. We look forward to reviewing your applications, meeting you at upcoming interview days, and you will receive the recording of this as well.